Well, we're back here again. Let's talk about Call of Duty Black Ops 6. So earlier in this year, I released a video which I completed every single Call of Duty mainline game on veteran mode. It's notoriously, typically, hardest difficulty setting on its campaigns. And recently, Black Ops 6 was dropped, so why leave my list incomplete? Here we are. Let's talk about how I beat Call of Duty Black Ops 6 on veteran mode. I'm not going to go too deep into the entire plot, and we are going to, of course, talk spoilers and focus entirely on the campaign. I'm not going to be talking about multiplayer or the zombies mode. We're just going to stick to that mainline campaign. Black Ops 6 starts off like your very stereotypical military designed modern Call of Duty game. It, right off the bat, runs very smoothly, just like butter. Between the movement, the way that the weapons handle, everything ran very nicely. Honestly, the only technical issues that I had throughout the game were the shaders, which, surprise, surprise, that is a common issue with Call of Duty games. And I really only had issues with shaders loading or really not loading on certain characters and really only during the safe house sequences. But for the most part, the game ran very well, so I can't complain about anything janky happening at all or having issues with NPCs. The NPC companions were quite nice. They had decent callouts. They only got in the way and maybe in the beginning of the game before I kind of got a grip and a feel for the way that the game would run, and even then, not too bad. This is not nearly as debilitating as, say, World at War, where NPCs could sometimes box you in a corner and let you get killed by a grenade. I'm not upset about that at all. It was nice to see the health bar visible, and when the game first initially starts, it's pretty brutal on veteran mode with a very slow wait for when it would immediately heal you, and hits would hit you hard. However, something that's absolutely lovely that the Black Ops series does, starting with Black Ops 3, is that they allow you to invest money into upgrades for your character. Woods really told me, go do a crime, steal money, come back and invest. And it's great. You get to see the safe house flourish with some extra little areas, as well as focus on things that would help you in the campaign. You can even invest money into guns that you can unlock in the multiplayer side of the game as well. That's definitely one of my favorite aspects of the game. The safe house is really, really great. Yes, we've had similar HUDs or safe houses in prior titles, Black Ops 3, Black Ops Cold War, Infinite Warfare, but this really takes a lot of what was done previously and well done and refines it. And that's really the theme of this game. I had a lot of moments where I go, oh, this reminds me of this reminds me of that, but done, I wouldn't say better, but evolved. Moments in the safe house was well designed. There were some extra little side puzzles that you could go through. You could listen to dialogues of some of the characters interacting, as well as have conversations with them yourselves. Nice way to cool down in between combat sequences, level out, and really endear yourself to the characters and their stories. See them come to terms with maybe some of their personal issues, and whether you talk them through it or not, it is a nice way to get to know these characters a little bit more. Obviously, Frank Woods is one of the most iconic pieces of the Black Ops series, and it's fantastic to see him so heavily involved in this campaign. This game takes place in a very odd place within the Black Ops franchise. It takes place after the events of the Cold War game, and directly after the events of the past / early flashback portions of Black Ops 2. They did a good job of referencing as much as they could of the other Black Ops games, especially of Black Ops 2, to really solidify where this is in the story and help it blend in smoothly, since it is kind of placed in an odd spot. Something labeled Black Ops 6 you wouldn't really think is kind of like a Black Ops 2.5, Black Ops 1.5. It's so odd how the timeline has become, which really Black Ops 1.5 should go to Cold War, but that's just me getting crazy with naming schemes and numbers and such. We got introduced to a few new characters, as well as seeing Adler again in all of his glory. Speaking of, our player character, Case, is a blank slate. In my initial notes, I wrote that Case was a little bit boring and just, oh, this is your very stereotypical self-insert kind of a character. Had noted that I was a little bit sad that there was no character customization options at the beginning of the game. Black Ops is one of the most customizable games out of the campaigns, where in Black Ops 3 you can actually change minorly the way your character looked, and in Cold War you got to play around with different stats. This one as well, of course, has its own different brand of stats, but Case started off a bit of as a blank slate. However, when the game hit its horror sequence and you got to actually learn about Case's backstory, that blank slate ended up working very well in that favor, and I was riveted. I felt like I was watching a soap opera, eating my popcorn. Quite great. Which, speaking of the horror sequence, you might not know this about me unless you watch some of my horror live streams on Twitch, but I wouldn't say I have a phobia. But mannequins in a horror setting make me uncomfortable. I can go to a department store just fine, but if I walk into a room and it's just me and it's an empty room and it's mannequins, I'm gonna be a little bit upset. So, thank you, Call of Duty. Thank you so much for bringing my very specific niche fear into your campaign. Horrifying, but ended up being a fun way to blend aspects of the zombies mode into the actual campaign. Much like the Easter egg that you have in the Cold War bunker mission. It was horrifying. Thank you. I like horror. Clearly. So I was having a jolly old time, minus the intense screaming in fear of mannequins. I still was thoroughly enjoying the fact that they had implemented some sort of a horror-esque aspect during Case's trip through the cradle and all of the flashbacks and such. Moving a little bit more into the story. Nice basic Call of Duty story with a little bit of betrayal, a little bit of plot twists here and there, lots of great action, thoroughly enjoyable. I had a fun time with this game. The way I look at the Call of Duty games is I see them like a bag of potato chips. They're like junk food. Really, really fun. Maybe not the highest of art and the healthiest for your mind, but I enjoy them a lot, and this one was enjoyable. Lots of explosions, high intense action, lots more spy stuff going on. I'm really glad that they did more than one kind of espionage, a sneaky mission, since Black Ops is meant to be CIA and more spy coded rather than your very typical military gung-ho like we have had in the World War II related titles or any of the Modern Warfare series. One of the best sequences of the Cold War game is a Russian spy mission, essentially, and we got a couple more missions just like it, where you got to play around with different ways of going at a problem, being sneaky or not. I liked that. It again broke up the action and just made it a much more fleshed out and enjoyable game than just a Call of Duty game. It's an enjoyable game, period, point blank, with variety to it, as opposed to just pointing and shooting. Don't get me wrong, I love my pointy shooty pow pow games. They're fun. But again, sometimes you need to have a little bit of ebb and flow, a little bit of rest in between the action, so that way you're not immediately burnt out and it becomes stale. I definitely got jump scared by Bill Clinton. I was not expecting to see him rendered there. My goodness. I can't tell if this is just the fact that this is more than my 20th rodeo playing these games on, again, its hardest difficulty, or if the game itself just wasn't particularly difficult, but I wouldn't call it not particularly difficult in a bad way. I still had challenges. I couldn't just run and gun my way through it. I had to think, but I didn't feel like I needed to break my mouse in rage or feel like I was stuck on a spot for an hour or longer like I have had in other titles. Yeah, I died here and there, would have to redo things. It happens. It's supposed to be difficult. I chose that difficulty for a reason, and I was challenged in a way that was still very enjoyable. My really only main complaint about any of its specific mechanics, while I liked the Omni movement, as they call it, where you can sprint in any direction, felt very intuitive. My problem is that when you would slide, you would press crouch to slide while you're running, it would automatically stand you up as opposed to leaving you in the crouch position like literally any other title. I can understand why it is that way, since they are focusing primarily upon freedom and flow of movement to do sick 360 no-scope trick shots and multiplayer and such. It's a minor thing to be annoyed about, and something I had to conscientiously remember, press the crouch button again, because otherwise you're going to stand up and get your head blown, which happened quite often enough during the game. Not much of a complaint, but just a tiny little thing that showcases what the main focus is and brand or identity and style of this particular game. It's going to be remembered for how well it flows, for how fast the movements are. Like I said, I haven't even touched multiplayer yet, and I just know everybody's gonna be like the little kid from the Ricky Bobby movie, all hyped up on Mountain Dew. Yeah, oof. I think another reason why the veteran mode wasn't as painful is that there was a fair amount of quick saving involved. If I died, I typically didn't have to go back too far or lose too much progress, so death wasn't the most obnoxious of punishment. Like I said, I can't tell if the rodeo's just gotten easier over time, or if this one was just a little bit more forgiving. Regardless, I don't see that as a bad game. Not everything needs to be painful, triple, extra, ultra, Dark Souls level difficulty. I was still challenged, and that's more than enough to make me happy. This game was quality, and I, like I said, enjoyed my little bag of chips. I was extremely happy to see the lockpicking mechanic back, because another video I did earlier this year was talking about lockpicking in video games, and Black Ops Cold War has a very enjoyable lockpicking mechanic that wasn't used a ton in the game, but this one fully utilized it a lot more, made it more important to do. It's nice, you just have to wiggle it in that right spot, hold it there for a second, and it pops open. Very satisfying. It has that mixture of seeing the outside lock like you would maybe, say, in Skyrim, but also still being able to see a little bit of the tumbler inside. That nice little blend of two different styles of showcasing a lockpicking mechanic to create something unique, moves fast, and flows, again, very nicely with the rest of the game. I love lockpicking in video games, so I was happy to see that one of my favorite aspects was back. The story definitely feels as though we are in the second part of a trilogy. There's a lot of build up to what the next Black Ops game could be. This does showcase that when given the time and developers are not under a crunch and maybe releasing a game incredibly quickly, you can put out something really nice, well done, runs well, plays fun, and is a decent and riveting enough story. I'm not mad about Modern Warfare 3. I'm just disappointed. This definitely felt like a blend of the good pieces of Black Ops 3, Black Ops Cold War, as well as sprinkling on dashes of the original Black Ops 1 and 2 identities and storylines. It's a great culmination and addition of the Black Ops franchise and a worthwhile entry into that storyline. More callbacks to the original, such as returning to Vorkuta, lots of mentions of Mason, dialogue involving Frank West's situation, post the flashback events of Black Ops 2 that left him in a wheelchair, and the struggle that he's going from an active combat soldier to maneuvering towards using his talents to help others in a different way. You can even see a photo of him and Mason in his trunk and his personal items. Lots of lovely little details, and like I said, dialogues with other characters. Most of my notes for this game are pretty positive, which is very refreshing. Like I said, anything negative that I would have to say is extremely nitpicky. It played well, and from the standpoint of just the campaign and how it physically played, it played very well, it played enjoyable, it ran smoothly. I know other people maybe had glitches, but that's always the case with any brand new large AAA title release, unfortunately, in this day and age. Like I said, I haven't touched the zombies yet, I haven't touched multiplayer. It was definitely cool to see the bosses from the Modern Warfare 3 version of zombies be implemented in the nightmare sequences as like mini bosses or bosses for case. It did make me wonder how much of the Modern Warfare 3's zombie version was originally supposed to come with this version of Zombies / Black Ops 6, but that's all speculation because I don't work in Activision. I'm just somebody who plays video games. While there's a lot of larger things to be said about it, overall, I enjoyed this bag of potato chips. It's very refreshing to not really have anything incredibly negative to say. With that, I'm sure I'll be back next year. Who knows what we're gonna get for next year's Call of Duty campaign, but as of right now, I'm going to enjoy where it is, probably go back and do a little bit of achievement hunting just because I can, and eventually, when I feel ready enough, I'll dip my toes into that multiplayer, but I'm gonna need some caffeine of my own to be able to handle that. Thank you so much for watching. Bit of a shorter video, but I wanted to get this out as soon as possible since I know literally everybody and their mother who plays or talks about Call of Duty online is going to be putting out some videos about it. I just want to talk about my specific experiences as somebody who has come into this franchise really with only the past 2 years and has, like I said, played every single one on its harder difficulty settings. I don't have the nostalgia of playing Black Ops when I was younger, far too young probably, like many other people do, and Black Ops was not initially one of my favorite pieces of Call of Duty as a whole. I always had a bit of a love-hate relationship with them since certain aspects of 1 and 2 haven't aged as well or as easier to play in a modern standpoint, and Black Ops 3 is... I have many thoughts on the plot of Black Ops 3. Regardless, I'm glad to say that the Black Ops franchise has endeared itself more and more with me with each and every game that I have continued to play. So now that I've played Black Ops 6, I get it. Totally get it. It did feel like I was getting taken into that magic almost that maybe was started with like the earlier titles. Well, sure, the plot twist wasn't the same exact weight as the numbers plot twist of the original game, still was a great and enjoyable game for me to play over the weekend. It was worth my time, and you know what? Sometimes on this nightmare of a planet and the horrors of reality, sometimes it's nice to just play a game and enjoy yourself. Take care. Hopefully I'll see you guys soon for whatever next video I do, whether it's cosplay related or video game related or not. Hope I see you guys here. Please, if you have played the new Black Ops game, tell me what you thought about it. If you played any of them, please tell me what you think. I'd love to have some conversations in the comments below. Sometimes, occasionally, I stream these games or other action-y titles or horror titles on Twitch as well. So if you want to watch me play these kinds of games live, please do check that out. Take care, and don't let the scary-ass mannequin zombies bite, because I had nightmares about that. Do not recommend. Bye!